glad you guys clap like that because I'm a little nervous. Very special person is going to be my guest in a little bit, and I guess you could say he's my boss. I want to impress him. I want to do a really good job because he's scrutinizing me. He could pull the plug on the whole show. So yeah. Where to go? We got to have it. The teleprompter's down? All right, I'll do it without a prompter. I'm a professional. Okay, fine. I'll just do it without the prompter. So, okay, living here with Dr. Ray is good for you to come to the show. And we really like it. And we got guests coming up that are going to be like sitting there, sort of, kind of, and all up and stuff. It's back? Okay. I don't think they noticed. Nah, they didn't notice. No difference. Boy, do we got some fun coming up today. How can you be pro-life on a college campus? Walsh kids are going to tell us that. Father Larry, you're supposed to be nice just to people who are nice to you. And also, are you a perpetrator of social entropy? And my very, very special guest, a dear friend of mine, we go way back, Doug Clark. No, wait a minute. Doug Keck. Doug Keck, that's his name. Doug, come on out. President, Chief Operating Officer, EWTN. Roy Ganuti. This guy has interviewed me how many times? 10, 12 times?
At least. Seems like more, but it might have only been 5.
He's a phenomenal interviewer. He has a son with special needs, and he wrote a chapter in a book called Special Children Bless Fathers. So we're going to be talking about that. His son has taught us some stuff. Doug might teach us a little bit what he learned from his son. So this is enough. This is my show. Right. You're not at EWTN
for now.
Okay. Can it? Shut it down. You coming back in a few minutes?
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you
very much. One and only Dr. Ray.
Thank you. I'm not trying to kind of brown up to him, but he's as good a man off stage as you see him on stage. He truly is. Okay, now, I got a question. Sir, in your opinion, who is the most fearless person on Earth?
A Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL. Yeah, okay, they're pretty fearless. Ma'am, your opinion, most fearless person on Earth?
First responders.
First responders. All right, these are brave people. I'll admit it. One more. Fearless person. Most fearless person.
Superman.
Okay, I got that. I disagree with all of you. The most fearless person on Earth is right here. And do you know why? Because, sweetie, do you remember what I told you to say and do? Go ahead. She's supposed to go, I don't have to listen to you. Now, why is she fearless? Okay, look here. Okay? 3-year-olds look up at big people and go, you can't make me. There's no way. I'm not going to do what you want me to do. Now, if the differential in size between me, as it is between her and me, it'd be a grizzly somewhere up there. And I would go, you can't make me. Get away. Poke you with a stick. Thank you, baby. You had your one chance and you blew it. You could have been a star. It's over. Johnny Carson says you never have dogs or kids on stage because you will get upstaged every time. We rehearsed this back there about 5 times. She's like, I can do that, I can do that. You can't make me. And she gets up here. Honey, I do that all the time. My role player, Janet, always with me as my role player. This is Janet, my co-star. Take a bow, Janet. Okay.
Leading lady.
Leading lady. Hey, I heard, now these are not rehearsed, these are off the cuff. I heard that your daughter's a counselor.
She is, Dr. Ray. Yeah. She's a clinical counselor. She got her master's degree here at Walsh University.
My daughter was going to do that,
Yeah.
and then she decided to go into the Army, and she was deployed. She was deployed over in Iraq.
Oh, well, Claudia always wanted to be a counselor. Ever since she was in middle school, the kids would call and say, her friends would call and say, "May I speak to Dr. Claudia?" So she always liked solving people's problems.
My daughter, they do a lot of that in the military. My daughter will tell me she's kind of surprised that she had to be a counselor in the military to talk to people to solve their problems. That happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, she also was an outstanding student, and so she really, probably nearly as bright as you, Dr. Ray.
I don't think
But
so.
she did very well in school, so and was a graduate student here as well.
Well, in
got
the
to
Army, a lot of times to be an officer, you have to go through a lot of schooling. And I remember Hannah doing that schooling, going through that. So I can kind of relate to what your daughter did that way.
Well, she loves being in a part of the helping professions, dealing with individuals who are in crisis situations or just need a little help.
Did anybody pick up the dynamics of what was going on here? You can have a seat now. I'm the star.
That's not true, is it?
Come here, sweetheart. I'm going to give you another chance. Come on, baby. Now, these little ones, when they play in preschool, one of the things that they say is developmental immaturity is parallel play. She'll play by herself, and there'll be a kid playing right next to her, but they won't interact because she's 2. And only when they get older do they... Now she gets assertive. Only when they get older do they actually cooperative play. Did you see that immature conversation right here? That was immature, grown-up, parallel conversation. I wasn't interested in her daughter. I was waiting for my chance to talk about mine. She wasn't interested in my daughter. She was waiting for her chance to talk about hers. I didn't ask her any questions. She didn't ask me any questions. Parallel conversations. Don't do it. You want somebody to really feel comfortable around you? Keep the conversation right there. I could have asked her a million questions about Claudia. I just wanted to do it my way. What do we got for questions? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Ray, I have a serious question. How do you get over the loss of someone to suicide? Is there ever closure? And why is it so difficult to see the signs?
One of the first things people have to get over in a suicide loss is blame. How, in any way, am I responsible for this, even at 12% or 4%? You cannot do that. That's the first thing. We are humans who interact with other humans with all of our frailties and all of our weaknesses, and to blame ourselves, and parents will do this. I've seen marriages break up because of this. I have seen all kinds of conflicts because of this, which is, it's somehow, some way, my fault. Your second question, why didn't you see it? I did a study one time on witnesses in court. When a psychologist goes into court and they said, Dr. Grundy, how likely is it that this person, according to your evaluation, will commit violence? And I make a prediction as an expert witness. You want to know what my prediction is, pretty much? That's about how accurate I am. About the same as flipping a coin. So you see, dear, even the professionals can't see it coming. Ending one's life is something that has many ingredients, and you can't see them. I have had people that I know, no sign at all, none, happy up to the day, it seemed. But down deep, they were carrying stuff. We don't have God's omniscience. Never blame yourself, and never say, why didn't I see it?
Is there ever closure?
It depends on the person, dear. because at some point we have to move forward. We have to. There are other people in our lives that count on us. I've seen situations where parents have had a college student kill themselves, and there are 2 or 3 or 4 other children at home, and the other children are basically emotionally neglected for years. We can't do that to them. What else we have? I hope we have something a little heavier than that. Another question? Yes, ma'am.
My daughter's 40, and she's not been married, and she's been talking to a guy online, and she's getting very nervous about it, and she's having self-doubt. She's having that negative brain chatter, and I just wonder if there's something I can do to help her, make her feel better about herself.
Daughter is 40, talking with a guy online. They're going to meet in person. Daughter's nervous and getting negative thoughts about what if I blow it. Well, the first thing I would say is I'd be nervous about her meeting a guy online. That's the first thing.
It's a friend of a friend.
Okay, so there's some semblance of this is reliable. Okay, here's what she's probably doing to herself. She's essentially saying, if I blow it, it'll be the worst thing in the world. I'm 40 years old and I'll never meet anybody ever again, and this is my last chance. So she's putting, she's nodding yes. I just wanted people to see that she's agreeing with me. Okay, could you stand up and turn and nod yes so that, yeah, okay, thank you. She's doing what we all do. When we have a situation or a decision, we go, it would be the worst thing in the world if this doesn't work out. And it rarely ever is. And here's one other thing she might want to think about. The guy could be a jerk. And she might want to go, glad that one didn't work out. Tell her not to put her whole self on the line on this one. Time for one more? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Dr. Ray. I have a daughter who's almost 4, and she started this odd behavior of taking things at her preschool and bringing them home, like hiding them and hoarding them, and also things in her room, like putting them in piles and like around her when she sleeps. And the biggest thing is that she's taking things from other people that aren't hers and being dishonest about that. So how should I regard that?
Do you have a good probation officer? I think that's real important at this point. They have preschool probation officers. You can get those.
No, we don't.
Okay. 2 levels to the question. 1, thievery. The other, she's taking her own stuff and putting it in piles. Let's take the pile question first. Would it be safe to say she probably has too much?
Yes.
Okay, Mom says it's safe to say she has too much. Start cutting back. At the very least, the pile will be smaller. Okay, it's hard to make a pile of 74 stuffed animals if you've only got 3. Okay, that's one. The other one is more serious, and I think what I would do is this. She comes home with something that's not hers. You say to her, well, we're going to take that back tomorrow, and I'm going to take this of yours and give it to that person. She's stealing. There's no moral component when you're age 4. She's not doing something immoral. She's just taking it because it's there. But isn't it an interesting thing? Okay, Mom says that this little 4-year-old has a lot of stuff. In human history, people usually took things because they didn't have stuff. We're probably the first couple of generations that take stuff because we've got so much stuff, we want more stuff. Your little daughter doesn't lack for anything, but hey, that's there. I want it. I'll take it. I would probably respond pretty strongly to that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. We're going to go around the country. Now this is interesting. You can't see this. This question is scratched out, all right? Because we're on a budget on this program. And we have to use both sides of the paper. So he couldn't give me a fresh piece of paper for this question. Dear Dr. Ray, do you think that people have developed short attention spans due to the fast pace of our world, jobs, and families? We are pulled in so many directions. Should we take the advice of Simon and Garfunkel? Now, this was written by somebody my age. because anybody younger than me isn't going to know who Simon and Garfunkel is. And slow down, you move too fast. I saw a statistic, and I don't think it's true anymore. The average image on television is 4 seconds. I think it's a lot quicker than that now. If you watch a commercial, it's probably about 2 to 3 images per second on the commercial. Think about this a second. Our kids' lives are jam-packed with stimulation. And that 15-year-old who plays video games that move at a pace like this, everything he does, he goes to Cedar Point, he's on a ride that's 400 feet up, 300 miles an hour down, it's a rush, and he's like, oh, that was boring. And then he goes to Mass, and there's Father in his eyes. Lift up your heart. And the kid's going, come on, man, what's with this guy? Kid, who writes this monologue? It's the same thing every week. Got to have a stunt priest. So, yes, I do think absolutely that this is a huge factor, and it's a big factor with teachers, because they tell teachers, you got to be entertaining. You got to make learning fun. And that poor teacher's up there going, okay, come on, okay. More stickers, larger sticker systems. And compared to what the kids are experiencing, this is one of the slowest moving things in their lives. My advice to parents, cut back on the stimulating stuff. In fact, if you're sitting somewhere at a restaurant, take the cell phone so the kid can like talk to a real person. Like, ooh, yuck. They say that guys with remotes don't want to see what's on TV. They want to see what else is on TV. Kids with cell phones don't want to talk to the person right there. They want to see what other person they could talk to. Yes, absolutely. That is a huge factor. And there are books written on this, and there's research on this, that it's harder and harder for our children to sustain some kind of, attention. Well, can you be pro-life on a college campus? We asked the kids at Walsh in our Morality Reality segment, can they? What do they think about it? When we come back. You guys are supposed to clap.
We want to hear from you. Go to drray.com and send us your comments or questions. That's drray.com.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Don't clap more when he's up here than it's just me. All right, my very special guest and my friend, Mr. Doug Keck. He is president and chief operating officer over at EWTN. So in essence, he is, you could say he's my boss, and I'm not going to be starstruck or anything.
We practiced that before
We did
the show.
practice this,
That's
yes.
very well. Good.
Doug, you were big into secular New York media. That was your career. Years. And then you met some little nun, drug you to EWTN with her look. How'd that happen?
Well, I wouldn't say I was big in it. I mean, I was in it for a number of years. I grew up in New York, and so I did work in the early days of cable television. I worked on American Movie Classics, Bravo, a bunch of other different networks, including the Playboy Channel, and 25 different ones in all, regional sports networks, including Sports Channel Ohio, which is out here.
You didn't say you were big in it, then you just named seven of them.
Well, I'm just saying these are the things I worked on, and so yeah, it was exciting. I got to work with the New York Yankees, and that might not be popular here, but to deal with Mickey Mantle and other things when he was one of our announcers. So I was very blessed to get a lot of opportunities in the early part of my career to work on a lot of very exciting television operations, and I actually started in radio.
How to EWTN? How'd you get there?
Marriage Encounter. We went on a marriage encounter weekend, and it basically clicked for my wife and myself that we realized, and I certainly realized, because right before we went on the marriage encounter weekend, our friends had invited us to go. This was in '89. I remember thinking for some reason, I thought, well, I'll go on this thing. I like to pontificate, you know, we can have meetings, I can explain my great philosophies of life or whatever to everybody. That's not what a marriage encounter is at all about. It's a very powerful weekend for those who've gone on it. And being there on the weekend, you just realized, and right before it I said, you know, all of a sudden it popped in my head, and that seems just something that happened to me. It was kind of like, gee, what about God? Where's he been? And so it was kind of like, oh. And so after that, it just clicked for us, and from there I went on like a Curcio, and that kind of focused me on my faith. And then I started watching this strange channel with this nun on it, and you know, I became like Scott Hahn used to call a tapeworm, you know, getting tapes and things like that. And I used to record overnight EWTN on a VHS tape because it wasn't on all the time on Long Island where I was living, and then I dubbed them over to cassette. And then when I worked around the house or worked in the yard or whatever, I would just listen to it. And you know, I have no theological background or anything like that. Everything I've learned is either by listening to tapes or reading the books I've read over the last 20 years for doing the Bookmark Show.
Do you need a series of mine? I mean, I can send it to you if you don't have one.
Yeah, I use it when I'm looking to go to sleep. I found that it comes in very handy.
Okay, so terrific.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
Your son, now, first of all, I don't want to skip over how you got involved with EWTN.
Right,
I mean, you
right.
met Mother.
Well, really what happened was over a period of time, I worked in cable television. I'd go to the national shows, and one day I said, well, gee, they must be at one of the shows. So I kind of went to one of the shows and saw EWTN had a booth, and I connected with some people. And I thought, well, maybe when I retire or something like that, I might be able to do something like that. But we just found that my wife and I had been a marriage encounter team, and we already had our son, and we had our daughter then in 1990, and we just started to feel that there was something else out there. I remember being at this thing in San Francisco for Sports Channel, and them saying Sports Channel is going to be #1 in whatever 1996 and 95, and I remember thinking, I really don't care if it's #1 in 1996. I'd rather cover the Pope or something by then. You know, that's kind of where I was at. And I've had, and if people read the section I wrote in the book, there's incidents where I was a pretty slow learner, and God, you know, bumped me on the head a few times to get me to realize that maybe I was being called to Birmingham, Alabama, which may seem like another world to you here in North Canton, but I can tell you it seems like 3 worlds away when you live in New York.
I remember reading the book. By the way, the book is Special Children, Blessed Fathers. Doug's got a chapter in the book. At age 4, your son You took him for professional diagnosis, and at that point you were looking at it like a lot of us dads do. He's not coming along as quick as I'd like him to.
ADD, we thought he was ADD,
Yeah.
NOS or whatever.
And then when the diagnosis hit you,
Yeah, well, we were actually heading out to a marriage encounter. We were giving a weekend, and we stopped by to see the doctor, and the doctor kind of hesitatingly said, well, I don't know, it's close. He says, but I think your son's autistic. And I was kind of like, whoa, okay. I didn't quite understand exactly the ramifications of that. But my wife, who was taken aback, had already kind of connected with Temple Grandin, having seen her on the Larry King show, and had listened to the symptoms and talking about it, and had already started to think that maybe Matt was autistic in the back of my mind. I always poo-pooed it and said, you know, he's a little slow, he'll get better, he'll grow out of it. You know, he's talking to himself and things like that, but, you know, if he's talking to himself when he's 7 or 8, then I'll know there's a problem. Well, he's 32 years old, he's still talking to himself.
how did that shift your view of the faith, or how did it make it deeper?
Well, I think the biggest thing that having a special needs child, at least for me, first of all, I'm lucky enough to have an incredible wife who really deserves 99.9% of the credit. Six Sigma is my wife. She's the one who made it, as one friend described it, raised both of my children, including my son, and described them as being bathed in love. And that's why I think they're the great people that I think that they are. But I think for me, obviously, I think the biggest thing was, you know, realizing he's never going to play for the New York Yankees. I had gotten a book signed by Mickey Mantle to my son Matt, and I thought, oh great, hey, I would have died when I was a kid to get something like that. And you know, it could have been Mickey Mouse to Matt. He really didn't care, as he told me, Dad, I'm not really big on sports, you know. And so you just kind of started to realize, and it's a slow process, I think, of realizing two things. One, what's really important. You start to see the world through their eyes, and they see the world the way it really is. You know, sometimes I like to say when people talk about reality television, I say EWTN is reality television, because that's really what's real. This other stuff, like before the show, talking about setting things up, or if you think television's real, but really much of it is staged, and you just realize that all these other things are ephemeral, they're temporal, they're there and they're gone, and you win an award or you do this, and then nobody cares. And what really matters is the people and the relationships. And the great thing of our faith is it gives us insights into redemptive suffering, which was a great insight that obviously I think Mother Angelica gave for so many people, and certainly had an impact on our lives. And when we went down there to look about a job, I mean, what really committed us to it was when Mother just looked at my wife and said, you want to come. And as we talk about people who are just who they appear to be, Mother was that in spades. I mean, what you saw on TV, that's the person we dealt with off screen as well.
You talk in the book about the gospel according to Matty Boy.
Right.
What did this young man, as he moved through his special needs,
Right.
and not touching the things that would be part of normal development, okay?
Right.
Maybe not going out on dates, not being any kind of sports fanatic,
Yeah, right,
any of that stuff.
Yeah, socialization
Yeah.
issues and things like that.
What would he have taught you?
Well, one of the things that he taught me was in these, like the gospel according to Matty Boy, was kind of like he would watch Touched by an Angel, shows like that. He liked shows where he could see a strong moral lesson underneath things, and he would come up with his own versions of them that he would kind of write based on what he interpolated from what somebody else might have said on another show. Maybe not totally original, but kind of in his own words. And it was what my wife had done as part of in dealing with it, which was to get involved with the child at the level that they're dealing, and to realize in many cases that he was connecting with us, but in a different way. You know, his way of jargoning is to use lines from TV shows to fill in where he can't have that communication. So he'll take standard phrases and use them. Did you have a good day, Dad? You know, how was it? And I'll ask him, how was your day? Oh, up and down, up and down. You know, it's up and down, you know, because those are the phrases. And it's also great because we have a relationship like that, because he has an expert on voiceover actors in cartoons. He knows every voiceover actor in the world. And I'm an old movie buff. That's how I ended up working on the startup of AMC. And so we like to throw lines back and forth and things like that. So it's actually a lot of fun.
How have you deepened as a father having a son that in some respects you're taking care of even into his 20s and 30s.
Right. Well, he lives with us, and he's going to be living with us. I mean, he doesn't drive. He might be able to drive. We haven't quite gotten to that. I mean, unfortunately, my poor wife has several chronic illnesses that she's dealing with herself now, and so, you know, we have that going on, and his situation. And in a lot of ways, as I told you, I mean, he's doing better than the rest of us. I mean, he went down there and he amazingly acclimated. You would think leaving, bringing an autistic child who's totally regime-oriented. Now, he wants to know what's having for dinner every day, and if it changes or where we're going, that isn't always the easiest, and there's some examples of that when he was younger and nonverbal, where it was tough to figure out what was going on or why he was so upset. He kind of freaked out at the Bronx Zoo this one time, and we only found out later that when he got more verbal to say, you know, we went to another zoo in Birmingham, he said, Dad, these animals stink, you know, I can't be around them.
The smell was
hyper,
his senses.
because again,
yeah.
with the autism, it's not a low sensitivity, it's a
Hyperreactivity.
hypersensitivity, which is why you get the clothes out. And we were lucky, he went through something called auditory training, which again, helped him greatly with dealing with sound sensitivity. And the thing that is always difficult with dealing with children on the autism, which I'm sure you know better than me, is that they're all so unique. And so what works for one doesn't work for another, and so there's no one way to do anything. You know what I mean? In some ways, it's like the church has a wonderful panoply of spiritualities, all different ways for people to connect that work better for them. And so for what might have worked in our family may not work for everybody else. And certainly there are a lot of children who are much more traditional, considered, you know, it used to be at one time if you were verbal, you weren't autistic. And you dealt with the refrigerator mother. We were at the the end of the refrigerator mother theory, which was the reason your child's autistic is because the mother
cold, distant mother.
Right, exactly, which was based on bad studies done at a university or something like that. And so, and more it's come on, and obviously there's more people experiencing to be on the spectrum, you know, whether it be an Asperger's or his. We're lucky with him is because he's a very friendly, easygoing guy, and he's tough not to like. And we've been blessed. One of the great blessings of working for EWTN is he gets to work at the EWTN Religious Catalogs warehouse, and he gets to work with, and I'll just say, the wonderful people who've been called by God to work at EWTN, including at the Religious Catalog, and he does great, and he leads he does the chaplet in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, he's the king of the chaplet. And because I only play the rosary at home because my son wants to play the rosary. And he does the readings every night.
The child shall lead them.
He wants to do the readings. I'm a real slacker next to him. I always tell him, listen, Matt, when you die and you're up very close to God, look in the back and wave. You may see me.
That's cool. God bless. I was looking forward to you coming. And I have met Matt. Right. And he's a delightful young man. An absolutely delightful young man. If you believe the statistics, the country is relatively equally divided between pro-life and pro-choice. If you look at the statistics on college campuses, it's not even like that at all. So we talked to some kids at a college campus, and we asked them, in Morality Reality, our new segment, how do you stand strong when a lot of your peer group doesn't think like you do? Any science biology majors among you guys?
Yeah, I'm a bio major.
Well, now you're telling me that little tiny clump of 5 or 6 cells is a human being? Come on, it can't think.
Well, you're just a clump of cells, so there's not much difference.
Easy.
It's just size is about in all things, and if given
this guy
the
doesn't have
opportunity.
consciousness. It doesn't have consciousness.
But that's not how we determine life. And if you're arguing that consciousness is that all that matters for people, then you're practically arguing ensoulment, and that's only a religious argument. So, looking at it biologically, it is alive once the egg and the sperm fertilize.
Everything that you need to become a full human person is held in the DNA to become a human person.
When does it become a human person? I mean, that seems to be the debate, right, Fred?
I would say conception. And I think that's what science will agree with. Science agrees with that completely. The only glitch you have there is...
This is not a religious issue?
No. It's a human issue. And so the only glitch that they have in politics is they're saying, oh, they know it. Even the most pro-abortion people know it's human. They can't get away from that. What they'll say is, oh, it's not a person because, you know, they say only people have rights, and that's the only glitch they have, but they know without a shadow of a doubt that it's human.
Who are you to impose any religious value on someone who does not believe that?
It's not simply a religious argument, it's something of natural law. And if you believe in any sort of objective truth, it's something that's universal to the world, then you'd have to agree that this is the case.
And it's not with religion. You can take religion totally out of it and still come to the same conclusion that life begins at conception merely by looking at the scientific facts.
Actually, we haven't even talked once about religion or God yet. We've only been talking about the science and that sort of concept.
I second that notion. The science and the logic can actually kind of lead you to the exact same conclusions as someone that would come out based on feeling and religion and say, well, God doesn't want you to kill off that clump of cells.
What about a late term? What about a baby that's 7 months in the womb and it's still basically legal in our country? What then? How can people justify that?
It can't be justified because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can save a preterm baby at, what, less than 20 weeks now? We have the technology with I can't remember the word.
20 weeks that's pushing it, but we're getting close. So medical research is constantly, it is constantly being advanced and stuff. We are having issues with, you know, preterm babies at 35 weeks, and now that number just keeps backing up farther and farther and farther. So at 7 months, who knows how viable.
The question of life in the womb is not simply a religious question. It is a question of biology. It is a question of the world that we live in. Once again, God's morality squares with reality. Feel awful good hearing kids like that, articulate, thoughtful, moral. It kind of clashes with the stereotype of college kids. Doug, you've been sitting here with me for a while. You want to take some questions from these folks?
Sure, whatever you want to do.
Okay, what do we have for questions from folks? Sir?
As a former special ed teacher and an engineering teacher, do you feel your son was given the best opportunity to flourish given his circumstances because of his teachers?
Well, I think in our case, what we decided, and I think it's always tough in individual cases, I was alluding to earlier, when we went down to Birmingham, the first #1 priority was to find a school district that would be good for Matt. And we went to the Hoover School District, and it is wonderful, and they did a wonderful job with him. And we decided that what mattered most to us is for Matt to be happy, and for Matt to never want to not go to school. And so sometimes, and we might have erred, and I'll say erred, on the side of not worrying as much all the time how much academics he got every given day. He got academics. He ultimately graduated high school. He got a regular diploma, but it took him 2 years longer to be there. But we emphasized that. We just felt we didn't want him to be dreading going to school. We weren't in a situation, unfortunately, with my wife's health to homeschool him. We couldn't send him to Catholic school because they weren't equipped really usually to deal with a lot of those situations because there's more resources, obviously. So he seems happy with the decisions. His teachers still bump into him and want to come and give him a hug, say hello. Some of his ex-schoolmates, one of the guys who played for Alabama football bumped into us who had known Matt from Hoover High School.
That would hurt.
And said, well, he bumped into us, but he came over to say hello to Matt and ask him if he remembered him from the class because they all remember him. So.
We have time for one more.
Yes, I also have a child.
Stand up, ma'am, so the camera can see you. This is your big debut.
Okay, so I also have a child with autism. She's 27. The incidence of autism when she was 3, when I diagnosed her, was 1 in every 13,000 births. Now, it's 1 in every 80. And back when my daughter was 3, that was it. That was the only resource, me and the library, maybe. Now, they're organized. They have their own legal teams. And you have representatives that go with you to those IEP meetings and hash out ideas.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right,
Comment, Doug?
and also in the fact that even I was thinking, at least back then, I don't know what the numbers are still, but it was always much a higher likelihood for a boy to have autism than a girl, so there was fewer diagnosed girls. At least that's what I remember was the case when Matt was diagnosed in 1990. Yeah.
There's a lot of debate on why those numbers have shifted so radically. One of the big ones, of course, is that the diagnosis of autism, which was once a very severe neurodevelopmental disorder, was narrow like this. I remember in grad school we were taught that virtually nonverbal, pretty much non-social interaction, it's broadened. That's not the only explanation, and they're really wrestling with what is happening either in the womb, shortly thereafter, chemicals. Some people even say vaccinations. What is it? So that's still all up in the air, still pretty much debated.
Well, it seems like something's going on, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
something does seem to be going on.
Right.
Something. I cannot thank you enough for visiting with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be
Do
here
I
with you as
still have a
always.
job?
You'll always have a job at EWTN, Dr. Ray. How could you be replaced?
Younger guy. Some younger dude.
You're getting younger every day.
You better check for cataracts, my friend.
I didn't say I had 20/20 vision.
Well, Father Larry's coming up. Father Larry's always a treat on the program. Hey!
Love that, Father Larry.
All I am is 40 minutes of a lead-in act to Father Larry. That's all we are in this program. Do you have to be nice to people that aren't nice to you? Well, everybody would say, well, yeah, as a Christian you do. Yeah, but I don't think it's quite that simple. We got to wonder about the word nice. When we come back, Father Larry.
We want to hear from you. Go to drray.com and send us your comments or questions. That's drray.com.
We are on the campus of Walsh University in North Canton, Ohio. With me, Deacon Ron Riolfi and his wife, Teresa. 3 children through Walsh. Deacon, I imagine you took a pretty close look at universities.
Being a deacon, I was involved here before my kids went to college, but they selected Walsh University. They looked at a lot of universities.
You didn't say go there.
I did not. They took the close look and they selected this university.
What did they like?
They liked really everything about it, especially the Mass, being able to come to Mass on a regular basis.
Mass every day?
They all three made it a point, which we were thrilled with.
All three
All three.
gone to Mass
Yep.
here at Walsh.
Yep. Doesn't happen often. You know, you hear stories of students going away to college and losing their identity,
They
their
went
Catholic
away to
identity.
college and gained more of their identity.
They did, but out of their choosing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're supposed to love everybody, huh? Well, not everybody's easy to love. Not everybody's nice to love. So let's see what Father Larry can tell us about living up to that standard. Father,
Son?
here is the scenario.
Okay, this should be good.
Lady comes up to a woman and says, I know your husband, I work with him. I have to tell you, living with him must be wonderful. He's the nicest, most pleasant, most positive guy, always compliments everybody at work. You must love living with him.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
if he's that way, she'll say yes. If he's not,
She'll say yes.
here's his picture. What are you talking about? So the question becomes, and I hate to use this word niceness because it's such a fluffy word, but who are you nicest to? The people on the periphery of your life or the people right in the concentric middle?
Yes, I think we're always nicest to the people we don't know. I think, you know, there was this great story about this woman that came, and a true story in our area. Someone was coming, and she's coming in, and she goes to talk to the pastor, and she's crying, and he says, what are you crying for? And she goes, well, I was praying with my daughter last night. He goes, that's a good thing. What were you praying? And she goes, I let her pray, and she says, God bless Mommy, God bless Daddy, God bless the dog. Well, that's great. Well, why are you upset for? Because she said, then she says, and God, please let Mommy be as nice at home as she is to the people at church.
Oh!
And so it like, whoa! And how that hits all of us, right? That we can sometimes be so
I want him to
nice.
think I'm a wonderful person.
Exactly.
I'm gathering votes.
Exactly. But now once they get to know us, and you know, when we are who we are, no matter where we are, that would always be the good thing. Like I often say in my family, we are screamers. Like my family, I was brought up, we scream at each other, huh? That's just the way we always have been. You know, if anybody come to my house and they were just like, boy, you people hate each other. I'll often say that the best way to explain my family is Roseanne on TV, but my family's much worse. You know, much worse. You know, and so we're all screaming and that. And yet we all love each other. And yet if anybody was to look in on us and think, whoa, what are those people about? And so, but I think that when we're with people that know us, we can fully be who we are. And that's,
Well, wait a minute.
exactly.
What if fully being who we are is not pretty?
That's the thing. I think that, you know, there's again, it comes down, they get to see both sides of us. Most people, we try to keep our best face on, and we just show people, you know, the best of who we are, instead of people that see the people that we live with have to see the good and the bad.
We need to act like jerks for TV.
Yeah.
So people can say they're the exact same in real life as they are on TV.
Exactly. I often say that's who I am. While I'm on TV, even though you know, every once in a while you'll call me on the phone and say, Father, you're getting very nice on the radio.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, he does that.
You know, I only got 3 minutes. I got to be nice in 3 minutes. But most of the time, you know, I am a strong personality in different things, and so. I think everybody gets to see, we want to be people of integrity.
Wouldn't I want my wife to say, Ray treats me as good or better than he treats anybody else? I don't want my wife to say, yeah, well, everybody else gets the nice guy, Ray. I'm the one who gets him his irritation and his shortness.
Exactly.
And I don't want that.
And they shouldn't get that, and we shouldn't really give it to them. And so that's why I think when God's calling us to this repentance, that we need to be growing in how we deal with the people we love the most. That if we can be nice to everybody else and give them our best side, we need to show our family that side more and more, and really work on that.
Something's wrong if we don't.
Exactly.
That's real. I feel real strong about that. I get that in marriage counseling.
Yeah.
The wife will say, I wish he was a half as bit.
Exactly.
As nice to me as he is to everybody else. It doesn't mean anything to him.
Exactly. And I think that it's a call by God to sit there and, remember Mother Teresa, someone said, let me go work with the poor. And she says, go and love your families. That's what you need to do. Because in our families are sometimes where the poorest of the poor are. And we got to see that and do that. When I do deacon retreats, I always say, gentlemen, you better be loving your wife and kids more than anything else or get off the altar. It's because we can be real nice here, but it's how we treat our families where God's going to judge us ultimately.
At the risk of using a fluffy word,
Fluffy.
you ask yourself a question. Who are you nicest to? So there. If you judge me as a loving guy, I'm 99.99999% loving. Because I pretty much love everybody in China, in Indonesia, in South America, Africa, Canada, Soviet Union. I love everybody. It's those 4 or 5 people right around me that just is the toughest. But I think I want to go by numbers. My most recent book is called Thinking Like Jesus, The Psychology of a Faithful Disciple. In it, I talk about the law of social entropy. In physics, there is a law of entropy. That says everything decays. The sun's going to burn out, our bodies get old, iron rusts, everything decays. If the universe exists long enough, what's going to happen is it's just going to become a bunch of gas. Social entropy says this: you get lazy with her. You don't use your manners like you used to. You don't compliment her like you used to. You don't say positive things to her like you used to. We get sloppy with those we love. Some of you in your courtship, boy, you were pretty good. You put extra effort into it. But then as the years went on, you kind of entropied. You got sloppier. You don't tell her she looks nice as much anymore. You don't say the things you used to say. You don't open the door. You don't do the kinds of, you don't even thank her for cooking you breakfast like you used to. The law of social entropy really hurts relationships. They don't necessarily cool because of hostility. They cool because of laziness. I simply don't put the effort into you that I used to. Everything decays, even personal relationships. Don't let it happen. Keep in mind. Well, we're pretty much wrapping it up. My very special guest, and I think, given the way our interaction went with me and Doug Keck, I probably got a job doing this show for at least another couple episodes, at least another couple. And, of course, Father Larry talking about who are you kindest to? We use the word nice. Who do you love most? Who do you show you love the most? Who do you put the most effort into? I don't have to feel ushy-gushy towards you to love you. I just got to put some effort into this. Maybe shutting my mouth when I want to say things. That's love. And the kids in college, they told us, you don't have to be a religious person to recognize that life begins the moment that sperm fertilizes that egg. That's biology. Any biology textbook will tell you that. You can use reason, logic, and evidence to make the case. Well, thank you all so very much. We got to run. Come on, sweetheart, get up here. We're going to give you your last chance. Come on. You don't understand. The whole time I'm doing this show, you couldn't hear this because she's off mic. But she's gone, when do I get to go up? When's it my turn? How come he gets to stay up there the whole time? I could have done better. He didn't give me a chance. Are you done? Yeah. Thanks, everybody. sit on. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, young lady. You shake your hand? Shake your hand. Go ahead, shake your hand, no? I'll shake your hand. Him down there. On the next Living Right with Dr. Ray, read a marker. Protect yourself. Make your healthcare decisions at the end of life when you can't speak. New book, Being a Grandparent. Do your kids, grandkids listen to you? And Father Larry, where did God go in our culture? On the next Living Right with Dr. Ray.